Hey guys, so after I posted the last video introducing paper 1, there was a great comment suggesting that I show how I tend to write paper 1s in a video sort of step by step. So that is what we're going to do in today's video. So we're going to try and write a response to part A. And let's say the question that we chose is, explain the impact of automatic stabilizers on an economy. And if you don't know yet, automatic stabilizers are part of the macroeconomics unit, and more specifically, the part about changes in aggregate demand. This video is going to make much more sense if you do know what automatic stabilizers are. So it would be nice to maybe familiarize yourself with it before watching the video. So we have our question, and bringing in our general structure for part A, define, diagram, and then explain with example. And we can see that the first thing we need to do is define. And looking at the question, we can easily see that the topic of focus and the term we need to define is automatic stabilizers. So let's start our response by defining automatic stabilizers. First, I'm going to lead in with a bit of background information needed to understand automatic stabilizers. Something like, governments have different government spending and taxation systems which they collect revenue and undergo expenditure through. The situation of the government budget tends to mimic that of the whole economy. Now, you might feel like that came out of nowhere, but this would be something similar to how your textbook started out introducing automatic stabilizers. And then we're going to have the definition. Automatic stabilizers refer to pre-existing government taxation and spending systems that have a dampening effect to changes in aggregate demand. Now here I would say that you have the option of either jumping straight into the diagram and then explain using the diagram, or explaining a bit for the diagram. Either is fine, it's just that the latter option allows you to explain a bit first without having to reference all the diagram labels, which allows you to almost have this very neat and cleaner outlining explanation before you jump into the actual diagram. And to see what such explanation would look like, it would look something like this. I'm going to explain this in the order of how automatic stabilizers help stabilize AD during an increase, and then talk about how it helps stabilize in an AD decrease. So, explaining the dampening effect during an AD increase. An increase in AD in an economy can be accompanied by an increase in people's income, meaning more people move up income brackets for tax and pay a greater marginal tax rate. This results in a slight decrease in disposable income and thus decreased consumption. There will also be less unemployment, meaning decreased government expenditure and pre-existing unemployment benefit systems. These combined will cause a slight decrease in AD after its initial increase. And then we do the same to explain the decrease. In the opposite situation, when AD falls, people's income decreases, moving down income brackets where less tax is collected, resulting in a slight increase in disposable income for consumption. And with increased unemployment from the fall in AD, there will be greater government expenditure for unemployment benefits. This process will cause AD to bounce a little back to the right after its initial fall. And now that we have outlined how automatic stabilizers work, we can then jump into our diagrams. Most of the time, it'll be very clear which diagram you need to draw. In this case, the diagram showing automatic stabilizers. So let's say that I drew the diagram. While I won't put the whole specific diagram here, as a reminder, note that you want your diagram to fall between texts, so not on the same line as any of your writing. It should be centered. It should also have a title at the very center at the top, the appropriate axis and titles. And then once you have your diagram, you can move on to explaining. When I did this exact paper 1 question, I actually didn't use a specific real-world example, so what I just did was use the diagram and explain the same thing that I did earlier, just using labels. So going from saying when AD increases in my initial explanation to going to say as AD increases from AD1 to AD2, which is referencing the specific names of the curves in the diagram that I drew. And after you explain the diagram, it is about the point where you want to start to wrap up your paper and write sort of a conclusion. And what you want to do is to sort of summarize the main points and then close with a bit of why we talked about this and why it is relevant. So if we were to try writing something like that together, leading into the conclusion, as seen in both situations, automatic stabilizers has a dampening effect on the economy in situations of a defluctuation. And then this is sort of the summary bit. I won't read this one out because you guys already heard it before, but if you want to, feel free to pause and just read it. And then this last bit that explains why this might be important. That with this in mind, one can argue that in situations of AD fluctuation, a better alternative to immediately acting on it with monetary and fiscal policies would be to simply wait and see how much the automatic stabilizers can stabilize the economy. As you can see, this section sort of touches on why automatic stabilizers are relevant. So that brings us to the end of writing paper 1 part A together. Thanks again to the person that left the comment to make this video, and I hope this was helpful. In the next video, we're going to continue on with writing paper 1 together, focusing on part B.